Hey everyone, today we're going to be giving every killer a Pokémon type. Trapper, Normal, Steel. Trapper kicks us off, and being seen as the standard killer of the game and largely physically appearing human, he starts us off with Normal as his first type. His secondary type of course is Steel, a type representing his ties to his family's ironworks, but also his use of steel bear traps and tools to catch survivors. Wraith, Ghost, Fire. Wraith is a little trickier, but I think these fit him well. Ghost for his appearance and role in game, he's a Wraith after all, a word which can be interchangeable with Ghost, and a character who interacts with the spirit realm when he cloaks. He's also symbolically a ghost of his former self. Fire is his secondary type, and whilst it may seem initially confusing, it's representative of the fire that burns within, the fiery soul, and the remnants of his humanity. His first kills were also of course done by use of fire, which I think makes this one fit quite well too. Billy, Fighting Ground. For Billy, I focused on his aggressive nature and great strength, leading to his placement as Fighting. Ground he gets as a secondary category, with him being raised on a farm, having close ties and a great affinity to the earth, as it were. Nurse, Ghost, Psychic, Flying. Nurse I had to go with 3 different types. For the most part I've tried to keep everyone to 2 types, but there were some I think simply fit into more and had to add them in. Ghost is for her similar ghostly nature to that of Wraith, floating around and being an empty, hollow version of her former self, also interacting with the spirit world. Psychic is for her psychic powers that allow her use of telekinesis, then finally Flying as she's one of few flying killers in the game, so I had to give it to her. Myers, Dark, Normal. Darkness is what primarily defines Myers, with him being described as evil incarnate. He is the dark, and the dark is him. Normal comes in simply due to him physically being very human in the realm, comparatively to the other killers. I also think part of what makes Myers scary is that he's in part a normal looking person. Hag, Fairy, Poison, Ground. This one is a whole combo, but I do think they all work. First off, Fairy for Hag's ability to use the hexes. She's a magic user as her primary strength and ability, therefore I think Fairy makes sense, with her also being the source of it. Poison is sort of similar, for her ability to poison people with their use, with the use of the hexes, applying a variety of negative effects, which I'm sort of rolling together as a poison. Then finally a Ground for her origins in the swamp, and her appearance taking it on to some extent, becoming a swamp tree like her grandmother warned her. Doctor, Electric, Steel. Electric for his electric focus and powers, with his heart literally having an infinite supply of electricity. Then Steel due to his typical conducting of the electric being through steel, as well as his use of a steel bat as his primary weapon. The two come hand in hand for Doctor. Huntress, Fighting, Fairy, Grass. I sort of wanted to go in the direction of Huntress's fighting ability for this one, but also the environment she came from, which is so important to her, hence the grass type on the end. Her environment and the red forest itself is a part of her, and so a third type I thought was important. Fairy is for her deceptive element, and the fact she's actually a were-elk, capable of transforming into one. It looks strange classifying her as that, but I do think it works. Bubba, Normal, Steel. Normal, human guy, but he has a chainsaw. That's essentially my entire reasoning there. Debatably, he could just be a normal type, I think. Freddy, Psychic, Ghost, Fire. Freddy gets Psychic first off due to his abilities with the dream world and as a dream demon that allow him to manipulate and torment his victims, using his powers to invade and alter their dreams to be deadly. He's also Ghost as he's undead, and back from the dead, I suppose. He's got a final small bit of fire due to him being burned. Quite harsh, I know. But also for his fire imagery often paired with him, such as with Fire Up. He has an inner rage, which fire represents well. Pig, Steel, Electric, Normal. Pig utilizes steel for her traps and games, with electric in there too for the mechanical parts. And finally Normal, due to her fairly regular human appearance. These could be a bit debated, but I think her realm version and self, these do fit her quite well, with her now being the Game Master. Clown, Poison, Normal. Poison felt fitting with his primary ability being poison focused, but with it slowing down survivors. His bottles are essentially a poison, combining a number of different sedatives and harmful substances to slow survivors down and disorient them. Then Normal for his otherwise normal human appearance. Spirit, Ghost, Fire, Ice. Being an undead spirit, Ghost fits Rin well, and then I paired this with both Ice and Fire, a unique set of types. However, I think due to Rin's inner split between her sides of rage and anguish, which these two work well for her. Fire representing the spirit and the anger and rage within her, the part of her seeking revenge. Then ice representing the anguish, despair, and pain over her final moments and current situation. Legion, normal, fighting, ice. They are primarily normal and could be just normal, honestly, with this being their key defining feature. This is the type of horror they represent, the idea that anyone could be a killer, with them looking so normal. Then they have two subtypes of fighting, for their fighting studies they've said to have done, and their aggressive attacks and speed. Then they have ice, representative of almond and the environment they grew up in. Plague, poison, bug. These two types are down to her focus on the plague, poison for its effect on people, and bug to represent the pestilence aspect of it. Also because I really wanted to place someone in bug and I couldn't think of another good fit, so poison bug I think works well for her. Ghostface, ghost and normal. Ghost for the ghost part and normal for the face part. Demogorgon, psychic, ground. Demogorgons use the ground to tunnel and to traverse, especially in the realm, and are of course controlled by a greater psychic power, and seem to have some psychic abilities themselves, as seen in the first season of Stranger Things, with some sort of telekinesis going on. Their primary type is simply dog, I suppose. Oni, fire, fighting. This is for a combination of Kazan Yamaoka's rage and his clear fighting ability, which allowed him to cause a lot of torment across Japan when he went on his dark pilgrimage. Deathslinger, steel, normal. Caleb's primary feature is his twisted creations and tools, and so steel makes sense, with most of them being made of metal. Then normal for his human, regular appearance. He's just a regular guy bounty hunting with his tools. Pyramid Head, steel, dark. Primarily steel due to the big hunk of it on his head, shaped into a pyramid, and then dark for how he represents the darkness within James Sunderland. As a being, he's also sort of a dark creature, a punisher of those who hold guilt, a being born of Silent Hill, and so dark is the most applicable. Blight, poison, ground. The cool part of Blight is of course the blight, and so poison works I think, with it largely being a poison. It's a poison or infestation to the entity, it's used to transform people, causing intense pain, and it has of course also destroyed Talbot too. Then ground due to his appearance and due to his interactions with the ground, with him being a bouncy boy. He just looks like he fits ground, I think. Twins, normal, grass, ground. They are primarily normal, being regular appearing characters, but with subcategories of grass and ground, due to their environment and abilities largely falling into the category of survival. They're scavengers and survivors, and so those subcategories work well I think. Trickster, fairy, fire. Fairy is less so a magical element here, but more to do with his deceptive tendencies, and ability to deceive millions of people of his true identity. He's also quite colourful and bright and sort of elegant, which is something often associated with the fairy type too. And then there's fire for his birth within fire, his awakening being from the flames of his bandmates dying, which ultimately created the Trickster. Nemesis, rock, fighting, poison. Rock is more representative of Nemesis being like a rock, an unstoppable and tough force, then fighting for his reliance on his fists and brutality to get things done, and a final category of poison, due to his ability to poison people with the T-Virus, as he does to Jill during Resident Evil 3. Pinhead, psychic, steel. Steel for the pins and chains, and psychic for his abilities to control them with his mind, directing them and also teleporting. He's a mysterious demon or angel to others from the labyrinth. Artist, normal, dark. Carmina was tough, but I think she does still primarily fit into normal, with these being her core. She is one of the most normal killers in both appearance but also backstory. Then dark for her darkness that overtakes her, being a key feature of her entity given powers, but also her appearance with her dark eyes, hands and mouth. Flying I did debate, but I sort of thought it didn't fit because she doesn't fly, but I suppose her crows when she fires them out do fly, so maybe she could also have a flying type there as well. Sadako, psychic, ghost, water. Sadako's primary power is best described by it being psychic, but she's also of course a ghost, so there are two core features of her character and her powers. Her final category of water is more of a thematic and encompassing one, with her having heavy ties to water and its imagery, with it also representing her rage, described as being similar to a raging sea. Dredge, dark ghost. This one is quite straightforward, a dark creature with ghostly features like the fog and general floating, but also for the many dead beings that still live on within. Wesker, fighting steel. Wesker is most definitely primarily a fighting character, with him typically using his fists and speed to take on his enemies. A secondary category of steel seems appropriate, however, to represent his use of weaponry, but also for his steel-like endurance and skin, which enables him to survive a number of otherwise unlikely events. Knight, steel fighting ghost. Steel for the armor, fighting for the incredible fighting ability, and finally Ghost for the guards, but also Tahoe's himself, who appears to be undead in some capacity. All fairly straightforward placements, but they all fit really easily for Knight, I think. Skull Merchant, steel normal. She comes from the chapter Tools of Torment, and her inventions and tools are largely all made of steel, like her drones and her dual blades. Aside this, I would say she's simply normal, with her appearance being fairly regular and human. These are her defining features, her tools, and then her regular appearance. Singularity, steel electric. These are the two categories that fit Hux the best, with him being powered by technology, steel, and electric. I guess something to represent the crystal that unleashed his AI and freed it could be something more mysterious like fairy, but this is a bit debatable. Xenomorph, poison ground. Xeno is primarily a poison for its acid blood that pumps through its veins, but also for its general poisonous attitude it has to most living things. Then we have ground, particularly for its realm version due to it heavily relying on its tunneling ability, using the ground and its ability to track with it to its advantage. Chucky, dark fairy fighting. This may seem like an odd combination, but a key part of Chucky is actually the magic he utilizes, which is what turns him into a doll to begin with, this being a rather dark magic, which often relies on sacrifice or some kind of trade-off. He's also just incredibly sadistic, hence the dark as well. Then finally fighting, as he's incredibly vicious, aggressive, and surprisingly competent at fighting for his size. Unknown, dark psychic. Unknown was a really tricky one to define, as it feels like it doesn't really fit into anything technically, but could equally fit into anything, due to its openness of ability. A core feature I think is simply dark. Whatever Unknown is, it's clearly born from some kind of darkness, with it being its purpose. Then we have Psychic for its clear deceptive abilities through its imitation of appearance and noises. It gets in your head and deceives you. Vecna, Psychic Fairy Flying. Vecna combines a number of magic-focused types, being Psychic and also Fairy, for his magic and magical abilities. He has the ability to summon creatures, but also project orbs, and use other telekinetic-like abilities. He can also of course fly, hence the flying. Dracula, Flying Dark Dragon. Dracula is a vampire, and so flying and dark seem like givens, with him being a Dark Lord who utilizes his form as a bat to move around. He could maybe have Fairy too due to his magical and transformation abilities. I have given him Dragon though, due to his true form, which has some draconic elements. I really wanted to give at least one killer dragon, so there you go. Dragon, I would debate, also has magical elements to it as a type, and therefore would work well for him anyway. I think a few other characters could technically fit into Dragon, because I think the dragon type, it doesn't always mean the thing needs to be an actual dragon, you know, it's like draconic features or certain magical abilities or powers are sometimes associated with the dragon type as well. But to play it safe, we'll just give it to Dracula. Houndmaster, water fighting. Water made the most sense for Portia, with her being raised on the sea, with it being a key part of her identity and abilities. Fighting is down to her being an incredibly capable and violent fighter in her lore, able to survive for years alone with Snug, and in many improbable situations for a normal person. Let me know which types you would give to each of the killers. Thanks, and goodbye.